Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Raul Infante, here with Taking Dish Sports, here with my co-host, Hugo Dominguez.
What's going on, Raul? How's it going, guys?
Hey, so listen, this guy just came back from vacation. We're going to keep it going. We're going to cover UFC 235, and we actually have a couple rumors to discuss from the UFC. So don't forget, guys, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. So go ahead, Juice, and start covering the Namajunas fight against Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, before we talk about that main event, just overall in this card, I know I'm always saying, like, great card. It was entertaining, this and that. But last night, the overall feeling of the card was just kind of sad, man.
Sad.
Kind of a couple disappointing things going on. Let's start with the Rose Namajunas fight. Before we get to the ending, let's talk about her dominance in the striking. She's just keeping the distance. And she put on a clinic last night, Raul, right?
Yeah, I thought she did, too. I knew she had to be smart and fight on the outside and pick her shots, and I thought that she did everything correctly there. Jessica Andrade came in there and actually got frustrated right away. She got a cut above her eye. I was surprised that she got it above her left eyebrow because the whole time I thought the best shots that Rose was shooting or throwing was actually her left hook and her 1-2s. The two wasn't really landing that much, so I was surprised that she was able to land that. But man, what dominance on the outside by Rose.
Yeah, I don't know what the significant strikes were, but they were definitely heavy leaning towards Rose Namajunas. Like, it was just a clinic. I didn't even see Jessica throw a punch before we got to that ending, the head spike, which is a very scary moment. I wanted to talk about, just go back to an old video. Luis Violent Bob Ross Pena, he was defending kind of in the way Rose was last night. And when I saw him doing this, so people would take a shot on him and he would reach over and grab a Kimura instead of sprawling and getting out of the shot. So when I saw that, I'm like, there's something wrong there. And I feel like Rose exposed it last night. This is a way to defend a takedown, but I don't think it is the most effective way. Rose, the first time she did it, she reached over for the Kimura, and she actually ends up, getting the arm bar.
Right.
She gets lifted up in the air like she will get later. And she turns it around and turns it into an armbar, which was beautiful jiu-jitsu. And she actually almost finished the fight with that armbar. But you see, therein lies the problem. She goes for it again. She reaches over for the Kimura on the shot. And Jessica gets in on the leg and is able to lift Rose high. Whereas if she would have just sprawled, got away, she's dominating in the striking, like you said, keeping the distance, putting on that striking clinic. Why are you going to engage in the grappling with her? She needed to stop the shots, keep her away, get back to the stand-up.
Yeah, I thought that was the only chance that Jessica Andrade had to win, and she got the victory there. 9 out of 10 times, she does not win that fight, especially, like I said, how Rose was dominating in the striking in that fight. Listen, Rose is so talented. If you see that fight, I think, in my opinion, even though she lost, it was her best performance. That first round was amazing. Jessica Andrade is extremely dangerous coming forward. Jessica Andrade was coming forward, and Rose Namajunas was on her heel in this fight. And what she was doing was when she felt the cage, she was throwing that left hook and pivoting out. And Jessica Andrade was almost running into the cage because it was so bad. That's how great Rose Namajunas' striking was. Like I said, she kept the distance, hit her at the end of the punches, which is where you catch the most strength. And again, Rose Namajunas is super talented on the ground, but I just think it was ironic because I saw a video of John Jones, grappling with her, and John Jones got up and pretended to spike her, and then she ends up getting spiked in this fight. What do you think about, should the UFC change any rules in regards to that? Because honestly, if she broke her neck there, I don't want the UFC to wait till it's too late in order to change the rule. What do you think?
So going back to just real quick, I just want to say on Rose Namajunas' striking, it's not just the striking, but the footwork and the head movement, the defense was just, like, she was untouchable and just piecing Jessica. But anyways, back to the grappling. So she gets picked up, she gets spiked on her head. You have to defend the takedown. You got to sprawl. You got to get out of there. In my opinion, this is why, wrestling, you cannot slam people. Jiu-jitsu, you can't slam. So there's a certain type of movements like she did for the armbar that you can try because you know you're not going to get slammed. Whereas in the UFC, if somebody puts you in an armbar, they can pick you up and powerbomb you. If I'm taking somebody down and I'm planning to slam them because I'm in a UFC fight and I'm trying to do damage, I cannot worry about whether or not you're going to land on your head, unfortunately.
Right. That
is not my job. In jiu-jitsu, we practice break falls. In wrestling, we practice how to fall. And it's somebody's job to defend themselves when going to the ground, when being taken down. So it is very hard to add a rule that's not spiking somebody on somebody's head, because as a grappler, when you're going for a big blast double or something like that, or picking up a single, maybe even a German suplex, if you're worried about somebody else landing on the head, you're gonna, you might not be as effective. So if you're slamming somebody, if it's legal to slam, it should be legal to slam in any position. We can't be worried about position of the head. Unfortunately, speaking of a sad card, it looked very dangerous last night the way she landed. I know we were all afraid that she was like paralyzed or something.
Right.
But it'd be a tough rule to add. It'd be a tough rule to enforce.
Right, I see that. So with that being said, Juice, I want to ask you, and listen, because this is my opinion. I feel like Rose did more than enough to get the rematch right away. I know Joanna got the rematch right away against Rose, so I think it's only fair that with that performance that Rose put on before getting knocked out with the slam, that she gets the rematch. What's your opinion on that real quick?
Yeah, I think the question is, does she want it? She 110% deserves the rematch, but does she want it? Because after the fight, she was saying even if she won, she was planning to that possibly be her last fight. So she said that in the post-fight interview, and it's like, I don't know if she wants to fight anymore. We're speaking of, like, it's kind of sad. I don't want to see her go. She's a great fighter. She's very entertaining and a great person. That's why last night when she got spiked on her head, we all gasped. We were worried about her. We love to watch her fight. She's amazing. So hopefully if she wants to continue fighting, yeah, she 100% deserves the rematch as soon as possible.
All right. Well, listen, honestly, this is why we say that UFC fighters that get knocked out should not be interviewed. When they did that with DC against John Jones, when John Jones knocked him out, I thought it was a terrible decision. And the same thing with Rose. Yeah, it wasn't with strikes. It was just a slam. But, that's a decision right there. How do we know that she's making it, fully understanding what she's saying? There's been fighters that have done it all the time. Even in boxing, somebody like Victor Ortiz, he said that he didn't want to fight anymore. And then he said that he didn't remember stating any of that. So I don't think that the UFC should do that. But, with that being said, we're going to move on and talk about the GOAT. Oh, let me correct myself. The Spider in Brazil, 42, 43 years old, ends up having that performance. Anderson Silva, go ahead and start covering that.
Another sad moment. I think we saw Anderson Silva's last fight. It kind of reminded me of when, he did the leg kick on Weidman and his freaking tib broke in half. It's just at that point I thought he was going to retire, and big ups to him on making that comeback.
Right.
I would have been better. I would have loved to see his last fight be the one we just saw against the last style bender. But yeah, that inside leg kick, it definitely, from the way he reacted, it probably tore his ACL instantly, and that's it. That's probably the last we're going to see of the Spider. It's very sad to see one of my favorite fighters and one of the greatest of all time go down like that.
Yeah, I was really rooting for him to win as well, because, again, in Brazil, in your hometown, where you started, Muay Thai and everything else, your career, and look where it's gotten him. I just think that he's doing too much right now. I was shocked to hear that the UFC is working on a new contract with him. UFC, come on, what are you doing? Look at BJ Penn. Why is he still fighting Clay Guida on this card? Why is he even fighting in the UFC right now? Do not mess up Anderson Silva's legacy because he wants to continue fighting. I understand financial problems are financial problems, but this guy needs to hang it up. We want to remember him for the guy that he was as a true champion pre-Chris Weidman. That guy that was stopping everybody, that was super fun to watch. And right now, it makes everybody cringe to see him in a ring. I mean, this guy, that he fought yesterday, he's not even a big-name fighter. Threw a leg kick and the fight is over. It's like, so imagine if he goes and tries to fight somebody in the top 10 again, It's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, Dana White needs to do what he did with Chuck Liddell. Just, stop him before he gets ahead of himself. Stop him because, a fighter's always going to want to fight. But we've seen enough. We've seen enough with BJ Penn, too. That's a great. It's on the same card. Like, how many times do we have to see BJ Penn get dominated before we realize he's not UFC caliber anymore, unfortunately?
Right.
Hey, guys, like, comment, subscribe, show love.
Hey, and don't forget to hit that bell button for more notifications. So with that being said, we're going to continue on with the Jose Aldo versus Alex Volkanovski fight. What a fight right there. That was my pick of my favorite fight in that entire card. So, Juice, start with covering that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of disappointed again. Jose Aldo, I'm a huge fan. I just didn't see the oomph. I didn't see the power. I expected the crowd to give him some type of energy, and the crowd wasn't even that into it either. I mean, obviously because he was getting dominated, but I was expecting this to be a good comeback fight for him, maybe even a retirement fight, and him to come away with the W. And I'm sorry for being such a fan, but I was just kind of disappointed that he lost in that way. What do you think?
I honestly listen. I wasn't disappointed in the outcome of that fight. A win is a win, especially against somebody like Jose Aldo, that was the #1 contender in the featherweight division, as he's been for the last decade. But the problem that I see that Jose Aldo is having is ever since he fought Max Holloway. Actually, let's go back all the way to Conor McGregor. He kind of forgot who he is, how he fights. Jose Aldo was that guy that in my opinion, he had the best leg kicks, the strongest, most powerful, most effective leg kicks in the UFC. Jose Aldo, once he got knocked out against Conor McGregor, then went ahead and fought Max Holloway, he just punches. He's turning into a boxer. He's not using those leg kicks against Max Holloway. I was surprised that he wasn't utilizing that, especially how skinny, how thin Max Holloway's leg kicks are. Look what happened to Anderson Silva. So anything could happen if he goes to
and
that.
even just this fight, you're saying he's not using that strength anymore. That was his weakness in this fight. We all saw how red his leg was, how inflamed it was from the leg kicks. Great use by Volkanovski to use the inside leg kicks to damage Jose Aldo's leg. It's taking away his power from. All he's doing is the boxing. And also, he's stepped away from a great jiu-jitsu game that Jose Aldo has. If you're losing in the striking, he should have at least tried maybe something. He doesn't use the jiu-jitsu anymore, and he's not using the leg kicks.
Yeah, he shot for one takedown, but it didn't go well for him. Like you said, Alex Volkanovski, took care of the fight right away in the first round. I was a little bit surprised. I thought Jose Aldo in a 3-round fight was going to be able to pull the victory here, because the fights that he typically struggles in is the 5-round fights, so 4th and the 5th rounds. If you look at the Chad Mendes fights especially, those fights he dominates typically the first 3 rounds. Then, he's easier to get hit, get countered, and things like that. But from the jump, it wasn't the same Jose Aldo. Like I said, was able to get hit with a lot of leg kicks, and then he absorbed a few punches over the top. He was able to take him on the chin and on the tempo pretty easily and continue moving forward. I think that he still has a lot in the tank. Let me just give you an example. Donald Cerrone. I thought Donald Cerrone was on his way to Bellator a few fights ago, especially when he fought like 5 fights ago. He just wasn't the same guy. It was just like, oh, you know what? Whether you hang him up or fight in another spot. And I feel like Jose Aldo has shown that even though he lost against Max Holloway and Conor McGregor, that he still has a lot in the tank. So why isn't it that he's able to turn it around?
I disagree. I think if Jose Aldo continues to fight, I think we're going to have the same ending we sort of saw with Anderson Silva last night and BJ Penn, and I think it's going to just get sadder and sadder. I think it's time, or almost time. I see him. He just fought in Brazil. That's what he wanted to do. I was hoping he'd have a better performance, and so he'd be able to walk away with his head held high. But now that he didn't, he's going to go back to the lab and try to get that good performance out. I hope he can. I really do. But if you have to ask me to predict it, I think he's going to just continue to decline. That's just my opinion.
So I'm gonna ask you something real quick. There's a rumor Brian Ortega versus Zabit is being targeted right now, and then obviously Alex just beat Jose Aldo, and you have Max Holloway that's still the featherweight champion, because obviously you don't lose your title if you move up and wait and fight for the title. We all know Max Holloway has to recover from that last fight against Dustin Poirier. So does Alex Volkanovski deserve a title fight, or does the UFC set up the winner of Brian Ortega versus Zabit to fight Max Holloway next?
I say you go with who's the best fighters, and it's going to be the Zabit and Ortega fight. I don't think Volkanovski beat the best version of Jose Aldo, or so yeah, he was #1 contender because Ortega lost to Holloway and moved down the rankings. But I think, especially if Zabit beats Ortega, he definitely deserves a title shot. Perfect. Right. He's had the perfect path there. But if Ortega comes back with that win, I do want to see them run it back. He learns quickly. His striking improves from fight to fight. I do want to see him running back with Holloway too. I think the winner of that fight, I think, should fight Holloway next.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. So I'm going to give you one last question, one fight scenario. How about Frankie Edgar versus Alex Volkanovski? Who wins that fight?
I'm going to go with Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar shocked me in his last performance. We're talking about people being able to come back and be so, been in the game so long, and he's performing like he was the young Frankie Edgar again. Right. So I'm picking Frankie in that one.
That's great. Hey, listen, so we covered the UFC 237 card. We brought up Donald Cerrone. So on that point, I want to talk about Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone being a fight that was actually made that people are excited for. I can't believe that Donald Cerrone is doing Donald Cerrone things and fighting right away against Tony Ferguson, arguably one of the best or the best lightweight besides obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, I mean, Let's see Tony get back to that Khabib fight, but Cerrone's been on a roll, and these guys are just stand and bang. We'll see a great fight between these two. I'm glad this got booked. I'm happy to see Tony back. I hope he's back. That's what I want to see. I hope he's back 100%. I don't want to see Cerrone versus half Tony or whatever. I want to see a bang out. And then if Cerrone wins this fight, man, he's got a vying for the champion, after the Poirier Khabib fight.
Right. I think Tony Ferguson is going to be able to pull off this fight. But like I said, like you said, it all depends on the version of Tony Ferguson that we're going to see. I think that the whole mental illness thing is going to go away if Tony Ferguson comes in and performs the way that we're used to seeing him his last 12 fights, on that win streak. However, if he doesn't perform to that, I think the UFC is going to get a lot of negative criticism because they cleared him so early. Yeah. So,
I'll be number one on that, to be honest.
Exactly. So the best case scenario is for Tony Ferguson to win this fight. But who cares? Fan favorite Tony Ferguson and fan favorite Donald Cerrone. Yeah. That's a dream fight right there. I can't believe it's actually happening. Like I said, I love Donald Cerrone, but I think that Tony Ferguson is a little too much for Donald Cerrone because of his punch output. I know Donald Cerrone has had trouble with fighters that come forward and really change the pace. Donald Cerrone is a smart guy. He's a guy that's able to adjust after the first round and start figuring out your timing of how your shots are coming. But Tony Ferguson is a freestyle fighter. He comes with a lot of weird techniques. So I feel like Donald Cerrone is going to have a little bit of trouble reading the techniques that Tony Ferguson is going to come with and then ultimately come out with the W.
I completely agree with you. I think if we got 100% Tony Ferguson, I don't see Cowboy beating him. But Cowboy has this way of just surprising us. So anything is possible in that fight. Something I can predict, it won't get past the second round.
Hey, hopefully it goes to 5. Hey, I'm a guy that I actually want to see them go 5 rounds. I don't know why, but
I would love to see it go 5 rounds, but I think these guys are gonna go 100 from the first bell. They're going 100%. That's just the way they are,
We'll see. Hey, so with that, speaking of quick knockouts, the heavyweight division is a division that gets really fast knockouts, and a fight that just got finalized was DC against Stipe Miocic, that rematch. What the hell happened with Brock Lesnar?
Yeah, I just want to talk about I'm very, very disappointed in Brock Lesnar. Screw you, man. Like, holding up our heavyweight division for that long for no reason, just to retire at the end. I'm a fan of Brock Lesnar in pro wrestling to an extent because, he only wrestles for 5 minutes. And so same thing here. He's holding up. He held up WWE. He held up UFC. He does it all for money. I would have been very entertained to see DC beat him up, but all you did was string us along for a year. Go back to WWE. I'll just watch you do your 5-minute matches.
So what do you think? What do you think happened with Brock Lesnar? Why was it that he retired?
There's that rumor going around that he got flagged by USADA again, and USADA's kind of switching up the way they do things. So they're not like if you see with the TJ Dillashaw situation, they did not release the information right away. They waited until their investigation was done. So let's see if some news comes out that he was flagged, and that's why he retired. That's why he retired last time, so he didn't have to be in the testing pool. So maybe Brock Lesnar couldn't handle without his estrogen blockers.
Right. And listen, I think Stipe Miocic, I understand that he did a great job holding the title, but I don't think that he deserved to be the next opponent for DC because he just felt entitled to get that rematch right away, was not active. There's other guys like Junior Dos Santos that's been balling in that heavyweight division that I think should have deserved that title fight more. But, it's still an intriguing fight. I can't wait to see it. I picked DC again to win this fight. Stipe is going to be more careful, but ultimately I think DC is too much for Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, I mean, DC, don't forget, was also winning in the stand-up, which was supposed to be Miocic's advantage in that fight. So, I mean, he did the underhook and then the uppercut knockout. So, I see DC winning this fight. It's going to be a good fight. I agree with you. I think Miocic didn't really deserve right away, he deserved a rematch, but with everything that's happened since then, DC has defended once, and he hasn't fought in, how long has it been now? A year and a half?
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be a great fight. Can't wait to see it. I got DC.
Hey, listen, so with that wraps up UFC 237 and the rumors that we covered. So don't forget, guys, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. We're your host, Raul Infante, and your co-host, Hugo Dominguez.
Thanks for watching, guys. Us.